Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Mirror Dungeon solo video. Today we'll be using the ultimate basement dweller identity, Faust. Being an N-Corp identity, she does her best to support other N-Corp identities, and by other identities, I of course mean Sinclair. The number one main reason to actually use her, and the thing that keeps her viable despite the fact that she's a Season 1 identity with pretty terrible rolling skills for the most part, is her passive. Whenever you have a 4 Lust Resonance, she will heal 15 sanity from 2 allies who need it the most. This not only helps negative coin identities avoid corrosion, but also makes story missions a lot nicer, as the 30 free sanity healing really helps jumpstart your ability to reliably clash. Unfortunately though, she is not without her problems. Aside from her terrible rolling skills, the only other thing that makes her underwhelming is luckily not really a problem with her specifically, but with N-Corp's unique status effect of nails as a whole. Faust has the best application of nails out of any identity, coming in with 1, 5, and 4, and at first glance one might think that it's actually a pretty decent amount. However, once you understand how nails actually work, you'll see why it starts to fall apart. Nails apply 1 bleed potency and bleed count equal to its stack at the start of a turn, and at the end of the turn the nail stack gets halved. That sounds fine at first, but then you realize that the application of nails happens in the middle of a turn, so in reality the nail stack gets halved first, and then it applies the bleed. And if that wasn't bad enough, the halving rounds down, so Faust's true nail application is actually 0, 2, and 2. It's significantly better than all other N-Corp identities, but unless you're running a full N-Corp team, nails are practically useless. With that said though, the lingering nature of nails does make Faust somewhat viable in bleed teams. While she certainly wouldn't be my first pick for a bleed count unit, she is usable as one if nothing else. Anyway, to start the run, we take these starter buffs and find these ego gifts on the first floor of 2B Pierce, before making it to the boss against the King Trash Crab. Most bosses are pretty easy as we have access to an evade, and the crabs are no exception. Wound Claret and Nails are more than enough to build a bleed stack easily without even upgrading it, and we can defeat the crab no problem. We take Coffee and Cranes and Phantom Pain as our reward before heading into the automated factory for the next floor. Here we buy an extra skill 2 and Rusted Muzzle before making it to the boss against the robots. Pretty fitting for Faust to fuel her blood feud against a few automatons, but obviously they don't stand a chance. This floor is baby mode for even the weakest identity. The only reason I'm here in the first place is the other floors were just as easy, and I haven't fought the robots in a while, so why not? They're pretty easy to beat, but it does take a while just because of how their mechanics work, so I'm just gonna skip through most of this fight to be honest, as it's kind of really boring otherwise. We take Grey Coat and Late Bloomer's Tattoo for our reward and head into the Noon of Violet for the next floor. Here we find Filial Love and buy the Rusted Cutting Knife and Eclipse of Scarlet Moths, while also fusing Red Sangosipium and Respite before making it to the boss. For the first 3 waves, you could quite literally beat them by doing absolutely nothing. If you wait long enough, eventually the Fruit of Understanding will use the Decay skill, which after use will kill them. It's supposed to do a bunch of sanity damage, but if you dodge it, it will do nothing and they will still die. Of course, that doesn't stop me from attacking them, but still having an evade trivializes the first half of this fight.
제가 도움이 될지는 모르겠지만 정화! 정화!
For the final wave, we have the actual boss against the Obelisk, who for the most part isn't any harder than the Fruit. He's pretty much just a pure DPS check, and if you can't beat him in time, he'll use a special skill that's more or less guaranteed to kill you. Pretty much any character who isn't just a pure slash damage unit is capable of doing this, and with bleed being our main damage, it's pretty easy for us to win.
부위 한쪽이 떨어져 나갔군. 과거 본대 모험에서도 떼어라. 불개서 저희 직원들이 개체의 부위를 포기했어요. 역시 미리 훈련하길 잘했죠? 승객들 정화! 불개서
We take the mental corruption boosting gas and a duplicate as our reward before entering Unrelenting Might for the next floor. Here we buy Millarca and get another skill too, while also fusing the Ruptured Bloodsack before making it to the boss against the Rose Hunter. He can be a bit of a scary fight, as Rupture is now the primary killer in the Mirror Dungeon with how much counterplay there is now to bleed. Pretty much all of his attacks stack up Rupture and Rupture Count, so if you don't have a lot of health or some consistent way to heal, he's pretty much impossible to beat. Alternatively, you could just have an evade and completely ignore all of his attacks. Of course, it's never that easy, as the 5% decides to pay me a visit, and the Rose Hunter does have a few attacks that are capable of beating our evade as well. I do end up getting staggered, but luckily the turn it happens, a skill check pops up, negating the stagger for us, allowing us to add even more thorns and bathe him in the crimson hue he so desperately desires.
너희가 죽지 않도록 도와줄게. 대성공이야. 가론 신나. 노래 부를까? 아까 했던 공격 덕에 정화. 알겠어.
이런 건 몽둥이가 약이지. 그렇게 저 사람들
정화. 승리기 딱콩 한 방 먹였어.
We take the rusty commemorative coin and imposed weight as our reward before heading into the heartbreaking for the final floor. We don't really find anything of note here, so before long we make it to the final boss against not Heathcliff. For the most part, this guy is incredibly easy. He's pretty much identical to his Dead Rabbit's counterpart, but instead of allies, he has sin barriers. These are, for the most part, complete non-issues and can pretty much be completely ignored. The one and only exception, though, is his envy barrier. This makes it so anytime you hit him, he applies 2 bleed potency and count, essentially making it so that if you are not clashing with him, he will stack up a metric ton of bleed. The best way to play around it is to hit him as little as possible and wait for him to get staggered, as when he's staggered, he turns off his barrier. Egos are a pretty good use for this, as they usually only have 1 coin and are pretty efficient when it comes to eating the bleed count. Of course, this doesn't stop me from completely ignoring all of this advice and one-sided attacking him while he has his barrier active, nearly killing me with all of the bleed.
좋아. 얼른 끝내고 정화.
여러분에게
정화. 칼날이 잘 드네요. 아마 그 공격이 약점이었겠죠? 정화. 가장 순수한 세상으로.
And that's how I soloed Mirror Dungeon 5 hard using only Grippy Faust. Aside from Nails being absolutely terrible, she's a decent identity. She won't really be able to win many clashes except with her skill 2, but that's what an evade is for. Her sanity healing is easily her main draw and will keep her viable at least until Faust gets a new identity with an even greater sanity healing mechanic. Anyway, that's it from me. Like and subscribe to not miss next time where we'll be using this character. Goodbye.